Chapter 7. So the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondman or bondwoman, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, The adversary and the enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in the house? And the word went out as the word went out of the king's mouth, they covereth Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who spoke good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. Here we see the second banquet of wine. And the king and Haman are there, and Esther's there. And the king, for the second time, asks Esther what she would like. And Esther says that she would like her life and the life of her people, for she has been sold to be destroyed. Now, if we went back to chapter 3, we would find that Haman had offered to pay the 10,000 talents of silver to those who would do the work to deliver the confiscated goods of the Jews into the treasury of the king. And he was going to profit enormously from this. He was figuring on being made rich by all the spoil that he was going to be able to take. And so he was guaranteed to the king's treasury 10,000 talents of silver in return for the confiscated goods. So the king could have the confiscated goods or the 10,000 talents of silver, I guess. Anyway, the king then says, can't believe that his wife, the queen, is going to be killed, and he can't imagine anybody doing that, so he asks who did it. And she says Haman, and tells what Haman has done. The king is so mad, before he does anything, he goes out into the garden, maybe out in the garden area one of his chamberlains or some of his men are, it doesn't say. And then he comes back in, and when he comes back in, Haman, now you need to understand, at these banquets there would be like couches that people would lie on, and they were called beds. And there would be pillows on them for comfort. This was very common. This is how they ate in those days. And Haman had got up from his. He'd seen the king go. He realized the king was really mad, and he was going to try to beg the queen for her intercession so that he would live. And it turns out he fell. Well, the queen was on her couch. He fell onto the part of the couch, and as the king walks in, he sees Haman, and he asks himself, is Haman trying to assault the queen in his own in the presence of the king? Is he that depraved? Not only going to kill the Jews, kill the king's wife, but he's now going to assault the king's wife in the king's presence. And so he apparently has somebody there at that time. They cover Haman's face, put a bag over it of some sort type of description, something so that you can't see his face. And then he gets told by whoever is there that there is a gallows at Haman's house. And the king says, hang him on it. A little different than what Haman had in mind.